Good morning, Jacqueline.
Good morning.
This is John Ondrick, and I'm talking to Jacqueline Zimmerman, who is an expert on ACT and a paid consultant, and we're talking in Sales Talk. And this is kind of the intermediate stage of ACT, where we're going to pick up the pace of ACT, talk a little bit more about some more sophisticated uses of ACT. On the other hand, it's still an intermediate stage. We're going to talk about applications. Before we get into this, those of you that listen to the first beginner stage of ACT know about Jacqueline's credentials. Those of you who are going right to the intermediate stage, how about a little brief bio again?
My experience in ACT mainly deals with just working with clients over the last 3 years and working intensely with Symantec, who is the product vendor, as far as training with them on rigorous weekends and 4-day training sessions up there in Eugene, Oregon, and then having the pleasure of working with 4 top senior tech support people who would migrate into the private sector.
Mm-hmm. And also you're one of the probably 100 top experts in ACT.
ACT certified consultants, right, in the world. And from that standpoint, I pretty much have specialized in the creation and customization of different templates for different industries, synchronization, integration of products, and much of that we'll get to in this session as far as how the product works with other products.
Right. In the first session, those of you that didn't listen to it, we basically talked about buying it, some of the value added in having a contact management system. Those of you that are listening to this most certainly know the value, or you wouldn't be listening to this particular section, so we won't go over that. In the first session, we also talked about the all-important contact page, that page where you're entering as much information as you can on an individual. And so we pretty much finished up on that. And so to start the intermediate session, I think we ought to talk about the next most important page in it, and that's the contact list page, because once you have all your contacts in there, I have 729, which maybe we'll use as kind of a standard when we're talking today, just to have something to base it on. At some point, you can't remember everything, and you need a way to, you've put the data in, and the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. Hopefully, those of you that started got hold of Jacqueline and set this up correctly. But once you do that, then we need ways to manage and sort and be able to reach these 729 people quickly. When someone calls me and I need to have information at my fingertips, I cannot go to that first contact page because it just has information on one individual. I need a way to get to all 729 quickly and to be able to find the one I want so I can click on it and then go back to that individual contact page. And so why don't we pick up there, and Jacqueline, I'll kind of turn it over to you, and let's talk about the contact list.
The contact list view, there are 8 views of ACT, and the first one always opens up as the contact view. The contact list view that you speak of is my favorite view. As I mentioned in the last session, it's a mini Excel spreadsheet of sorts that really has a lot of powerful uses. And it's dependent on what you need it for. You're going to invent uses, actually, on your own for what's appropriate for you, given what task you have at hand. One of them can be is that you've got 729 in your database. I have 3,281 in mine. So we all have different numbers and so forth of our data, but it does at some point become a situation where we may not actually know. In certain cases, we may not know which Smith. We just know it's Mr. Smith, and so we may want to do a lookup of Smith. It brings up 27 records. And we may want to go straight to the contact list view, which actually will represent that 27 in the lookup. And we'll browse down and we'll go, oh, it's Bernadette. And so we'll be mentally cued. We get a visual of all of them, and for some reason we recognize it, and we're off and running. But that's just one particular usage.
Could I interject here because in this case, when we're talking about loan officers, probably the 2 most important categories that they can actually sort on to get to data quickly is the fact that when this list comes up, the first 2 columns, excuse me, first two columns are company and contact name. So you can sort on company. So if you wanted to go in and find everyone that you knew at CTX Corporation, you could click on company, and it would sort it A to Z or Z to A, and you could go right down to CTX and look at those people at CTX and identify that Smith that you talked about if you knew she worked for CTX.
Definitely another scenario where it really comes in handy. And the database actually naturally sorts by company name. This is not always entirely useful for loan officers, as many of their clients, prospects and clients, will not have company names.
Correct.
But many of the related referral partners that they have will have company names and so forth. With regard to this view, John, you're exactly right. In this view, I love this PlayStation, the mini Excel spreadsheet. And the reason being is that you could touch any of the column headings, except for a few date fields. Any of the field headings you could touch, and it would sort either from A to Z or from Z to A if you touch it twice.
So you're saying if you had names in there, you could sort those names A to Z, or hit the contact again with your button, and it would sort Z to A. So you wouldn't have to go through all 3,200 to get to your Zs.
Right. Hit it again, and it would reverse the sort. Now this is handy. Sometimes people want to sort phone numbers, and they want to grab everyone in the 562 area code for whatever reason, or they want to go to the zip code field and sort by that field.
I see.
This is enormously handy, and you're going to invent uses for this, for the different properties that are available to you here. What's nice also, the next feature that's super handy, is that you're going to see across the top in this view that you've got omit selected and lookup selected. So you can actually go ahead and there is a tag mode, whether you're in tag mode or edit mode, it's not going to matter. But whatever records then you have in your lookup, you can actually get a collection of maybe 17 people, everyone in 562, grab those 17 records and create a sub-lookup right there. And this is also a very powerful feature, which we can talk about even more so in advance.
Well, let's talk about a simple use of lookup selected for a mortgage loan officer who maybe has 1,000 clients and past clients, and he's entered everything possible about them. What would be an example of lookup selected? I'll toss you a hint. Maybe they're in a refinance market and he wants to look up all the people who have done ARMs.
So everyone who'd be a candidate, he can actually distinguish those in the list, and by highlighting them in that collection of records, or just by highlighting the ones that don't seem to fit, he may grab immediately everyone who is a previous client. So he's already in a sub-lookup. He's already in a subset of the database right from the get-go, and he goes straight to the contact list view. And then he starts kind of surgically tweezing out individuals who the mailer or the subsequent broadcast fax or the broadcast email wouldn't be appropriate for them. And maybe he'll just kind of tweeze out 7 or so of the list of 250. And so he's got a really clean set of data to ship out that particular mailer, that particular fax, that offer.
So you're saying, you're talking about the value added here in lookup selected, which is a tab. The value added is that you can sort, i.e. select only those people that you may want to target with a specific letter or mailing.
So, yeah, something that's appropriate to that group. And you could furthermore even step it up by probably something we'll talk about in advance, is the groups. To actually create a coherent group. And they will always get this mailer once a month, etc. And so with a click of a button, you can recall that entire group, send out your letter, and be done. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of power, and a lot of the creation of groups takes place right in this contact list view, this mini Excel spreadsheet view, where you have a lot of power to decide who's going to be in a lookup and who's not.
And go ahead.
Or just look through your data to see what types of themes keep coming up in the data. Mm-hmm. Do you have a lot of referral agents, a lot of CPAs in a certain area or a certain forte, and so forth? Or who are you constantly, one of the fields might be referred by, and it definitely is with ACT. And that's a great one for loan officers to track. How was this prospect referred to you and by whom? And for that listing, you might want to do a quick sort on that and see where you're getting a majority of your business.
I just did, it's funny, it brings it to talk about real life. I just did an interview with somebody not too long ago, and they did exactly what you're talking about. They had all this data in their ACT program, and they were I remember him telling me he was shocked because he thought that most of his business, his referral business, was coming from realtors. But the reality was that he had a group of realtors that were sending people to him all over the place to get pre-qualified or whatever, but he was only getting maybe 1 out of 4 turned into a loan. And then he looked at another source. I forget what the other source, maybe the CPAs or whatever, just to make something.
Financial planners. Right?
Financial planners, and to move this along. And he found out that he wasn't getting as many calls from them, but that he was closing almost 2/3 of them.
Yeah,
so,
these were substantial leads that were very profitable.
Right, exactly.
Kind of hone in and kind of cultivate that relationship.
But he never understood what was really going on. And, of course, the lesson here is that, hey, better to spend quality time going after my financial planners and CPAs. It's not only producing more business per call, they're more profitable per call.
Right.
So we de-emphasize realtors based on statistical evidence.
Yeah, based on just clicking into the ACT contact list view and just kind of seeing what is coming up for you. What is your data naturally? And that's what's great about your comment about garbage in, garbage out. ACT is as wonderful as your investment into it. So just by naturally filling it out to all these fields that are there, or fields that you've created, you can actually, a picture starts to form. And this is what's great, is your investment really pays off a couple months down the road when you start to watch natural trends in the data that really help you sharpen your skills and focus in on market areas that are very lucrative for you.
Well, one of the things that we did not talk about in the first one, because in the beginner session, because we did not want to get too complex about it, but I think it might be apropos to go back just for a second and have you talk about that individual contact page and the fact that you can create as many different fields as you want. This happens to be very important for loan officers because, as you know, loan officers deal in very detailed data, and they deal with a lot of fields. If you look at the 1003, the Fannie Mae application, there's probably 40 different fields from that alone that can be entered into a contact management program, forgetting about all the personal information that can be added. So you could easily have a situation with one individual by using these fields, these blank fields that you're able to define. You could put 60 different fields for one individual.
That is something I'm most contracted for, and that is creating the templates and the design of the data structure based on a wish list and based on the output that the loan officer or whatever field, whatever domain industry I'm working with at the time, but what is appropriate for them. And sky really is the limit. It's great. I love when they have a wish list of this is what I want. ACT is great out of the box, but you know what? I'd like these 12 other fields. I'd like these 20 other fields, etc. And so that you really actually create fields.
And I think that's where your value comes in as a consultant, if I can kind of couch you here a bit. You can have a loan officer that can sit around and read the book and take all the time in the world and kind of figure out how to do it, and all of a sudden he's wasted a week or 2 weeks, and you really can spend a week or 2 weeks doing this for sure at its intermediate and advanced levels, or they can simply call someone like you and say, these are the fields I want, or since you know the business so well, you in turn can say, these are the fields I think you need, let's knock this out and set this up for you. And this leads me into something else. For those of you that have computers at home or at the office, there is a very interesting program out there called PC Anywhere, and I wondered if you would talk about that for a minute.
That's a fabulous product, and it's perhaps one of the best created by Symantec, the former owners of ACT. We're all very impressed, all the ACT experts around the world, very impressed with this product. One of the reasons being is we don't always want to go out to the client site, or we don't need to, or because of geographics, many of my clients are from coast to coast, we can't really be side by side with them when we're working. And oftentimes they don't need us put for more than 15 minutes. But regardless of the time that's required to perform a task, PC Anywhere, what it does for me and for the client is allows me to quickly be on the computer workstation with them. We're talking on the phone, just like you and I are right now, John. We're talking, we're speaking, and we're actually looking at the same computer screen, which is theirs. And I'm allowed, they host me. It's a very deliberate move. I don't sneak over on my own. But they actually host me, so I can come over. We both look at their computer together.
Now, we need to back up here a minute and say PC Anywhere is a software program you buy in a box. I think it's not very expensive, less than $100 for sure. And each person has to have it. If I am your client, Jacqueline, I have to have PC Anywhere in my computer, and you obviously have to have it too. And what it does, it's like having Jacqueline come through the wires and stand right next to you looking at your computer and saying, okay, let's do this, let's do that, except Jacqueline's out in California doing it.
And it is extraordinary. A picture is 1,000 words. Many things that used to take an hour and a half to discuss over the phone can be resolved sometimes in 5 to 10 minutes. So just from a practicality standpoint of everyone getting back to work and, preventing the clicking on a wrong button, regardless of where the communication error lies, it's just a powerful product. You can't go wrong with it. I recommend it to everyone who actually even has a computer. From time to time, definitely if you've got ACT, you want ease of access for any consultant to quickly help you if something should ever come up or if you already have a planned project. But it's a terrific product. Yeah,
and PC Anywhere, and it's something that everybody should write down, PC Anywhere literally pays for itself probably within an hour.
Yes, it does.
Less than an hour.
That's a great point.
Now you have something that's literally free. And the value added of the program is it enables you to manipulate my screen with me sitting there watching, giving you my input, and you're actually looking at my screens and making the changes for me. And that's kind of nifty.
And lots of things come up. Yeah, so sometimes it's a quick error. Someone hit a wrong button.
Sure.
Very uncommon, but if it happens, 5 minutes, we patch it up. And it's a great service. It's a great product to have the entire time you have a computer.
Right, exactly. And this is where we're bringing real value. Another area, too, and since this is an intermediate class, a lot of the loan officers that I interview that are above the 30 million and above, and that's pretty much all I do interview, but those people there that are dealing in a contact management program, they've reached the stage where they're pretty busy. And so time becomes very precious to them. And a lot of them have hired assistants, either an assistant that they share with maybe another high producer. I have one person I interviewed, they have an assistant that's shared among 4 people. And one of the things this assistant does is maintain the database for the 4 loan officers. These loan officers don't know how to spell ACT. They don't have to know how to spell ACT. They just simply turn it over to the assistant, and the assistant does everything.
That is the case with certain individuals. There does come a point where you actually will want to actually sit down and browse ACT, regardless of how many other people are managing and maintaining the data, entering all the input and so forth, printing out all the output. You do want to have some type of small relationship with ACT, but yes, you really can put it in the hands of someone else.
Yeah, and not everybody has an assistant that's dedicated to that task. I would say it's the rare person. But remember, Jacqueline, the people that are listening to this are people who want to get into that class. They want to knock out 30, 40, 60, $100 million a year, and they need a methodology to do that. And this is what we're talking about, how you can make money from this and give yourself a quality aspect to your life, too. So let's get back to this contact list. We discussed the fact that any fields that you're putting in, the individual list is going to appear on this. It's like a mini spreadsheet. You talk about lookup selected. What about omit selected? What exactly is that?
Omit is just the reverse. Once in a while, when you're looking at a list maybe of 729 like yours, you may say, hey, I want to send out a Christmas list. Well, there are people in the database that you may not want to send to. You may not want to send to yourself. You live in the database. And so the omit is when you're surgically taking out just a few. It's interchangeable. It's just, you know.
So it's just the flip side of the other.
It is. It is. Sometimes you find it handy. And instead of selecting all 728, you just might want to highlight your own name and say omit selected, and boom, you've got a wonderful Christmas list.
Let me give you a potential scenario and tell me if I can do it. I have a list of 729, and in that I have 15 title companies spread around town that I get a little business from, I send a little business to. Collectively, that's who I do my settlements with, and my title companies also mean a settlement attorneys too in those states that use settlement attorneys. And in them, I've run across an incredible article that pertains to the mortgage business as it relates to settlement attorneys and title companies that just came out from HUD, and I would really like to get it to them as a value added. And I have their emails, and I have their fax numbers, and I have the article sitting in Word, and I have 729 contacts. Can I get that article to those 15 people by email or fax quickly, and how would I do that?
Definitely. And ACT gives you a choice of word processor. It used to be the case that WordPerfect was also an integration that was available to you. It is no longer. You have your choice of using the ACT word processor or Microsoft Word, and I always recommend Microsoft Word. But that actually is a deliberate choice that you make in the preferences of ACT, and we can talk about preferences. So the answer is definitely yes. And
how would I do that?
Definitely something we do every day. That actual document, it could actually be brought in and customized just a little bit into a template, so it may reflect some personal information, and then it could be mail merged out. So that would be one use of it.
Well, let's say
just the basic use of it. You know what you speak of? Just the basic use of actually just having that document.
Yep, I got it from HUD. It's in my Word, and now I want to get it out to them. I want to be the first kid on the block to get it out to these title companies because I know they want to hear it.
Okay. With regard to that, if you're in the contact list view and you are doing a sort by those 15 title companies, you could, one, just make a group or for later's use or for tracking, or just take that lookup that you've actually created for yourself right now.
Yeah, it's a one-time shot. Want to get out to these 15. They're not in a separate group. I got 729. I want to get this HUD memo to them by email. Let's say by email. Just do it as an attachment.
With email, you're going to have your choice. Now, if you do it as an attachment, then you cannot mail merge it. And this is an exciting point. So for anyone listening, many of us get an email, and it does show a carbon copy to maybe 20, 50, 100 other people. And sometimes, one, we're annoyed by that, or we don't like that because we don't want our name listed in that. But if that is okay with you, and that's the purpose of this type of email, you don't mind who else is getting it, then you would go straight into the email view, and you would, with that lookup, create that lookup, say current lookup in the email view to email create message, and then take that entire lookup and push them all into the other side. When you're in the ACT product itself, you can know what I'm talking about, and then attach a file straight to that email. And so if you did have a collection of 75 records, that attachment would be attached to those 75 records, and it would all go out. Now, the only liability of doing it that way is that you do show the 75 other people,
which you may not want to do, but assuming that I've got 15 people and it's a small universe, everybody knows who the other companies are.
What would be the difference? And that's perfectly okay for that scenario. If you are a little more advanced and you want to be more clever and go into stealth mode, then you are going to take advantage of the mail merge feature in ACT. And with mail merge, you can either fax, email, print out, etc. And email is definitely one of the features that would be used.
What do you mean by stealth? I'm confused.
Stealth means that the email goes out to that person, and they don't know that 500 other people were actually sent that as well.
Now, one of us is going to love that. So let's talk about that.
Seller. There is one liability, which is that all of the Word functions and formatting would be stripped out. It cannot be an attachment, because when you're mail merging, it actually becomes a document.
Okay. But what it can do is, what you're saying is that now I have a situation that I want to send it out to my 15 CPAs, and for sure I want my CPAs to think that I am the only person that is dealing with them, that they are number one on my list. But the reality is I really have 15, and I'm working it the same way. And I got this incredible document from the Financial Standards Committee on the change to CPA accounting. Want to get it out, and I do not want them to know the other 14 people. So how would that be done?
Exactly.
In stealth mode?
Then you actually grab the lookup,
okay.
15 people, and there are a variety of ways to do that. We're speaking of the contact list view way of doing that, where you'd say lookup select, you select the 15 in that view, and you say lookup selected. At that point, you're free to go back into the regular view of that and say write, mail merge, and then you have a host of options at that point. You're actually though going to have already created that particular document as a Microsoft Word Act template. That's going to be also included probably in the advance. But just to let people know, templates are an incredibly powerful tool. They're easy to make, and especially with the integration with Microsoft Word, it looks much like all the documents that you're currently using anyways. Now you just have a nice link into ACT.
Mm-hmm. But the value added for the loan officer, and while you talk from a technical aspect, I have to think in terms of loan officers getting more loans and giving value and creating relationships. So we're not opposed. We're very tangential, even entwined at times. But I look at the picture a little bit different, and the way I interpret what you say is that I now can take my 15 CPAs, get them a message, and everyone thinks it's just Johnny Boy out there getting it to them.
Right, very personalized, very individual, and very flattering email to get. Mm-hmm. And so many people are using this feature, and they're thrilled about it.
Okay, let me give another specific scenario for our listeners out there that absolutely would come out. In my contact page for individuals, I have created fields for type of loan, conventional, VA, FHA, and within conventional, things like ARMs, different types, 3-1s, 5-1s, 327s, whatever. And then also I have put their interest rate, in some cases their start rate, and I also have time in there so that I have to feel for what their interest rate may be now when it got recast. And now I have 729 in my database. And all of a sudden, the market, which has been running around 8.5%, really drops down to about 7.5% for the long-term bond, and let's say the rates are 7.5%. And now I know I got a lot of potential refis out there in that 729, especially among some ARMs, and also fixed rates that maybe I close at 8.25% or 8.5%. And now I want to get a letter out to them in a stealth mode that looks like it's an individual letter just for them, and I want to send it to their home address. Fortunately, I put that in there in my database. How do I go about doing it? And I will make this up. Out of the 729, there are going to be 57 potential good prospects out there. How can I do that quickly so that I can get a letter out to them in less than 20 minutes, have everything set up and ready to go?
Pretty much you want to do a quick sort on what the interest rate is. I mean, you may want to do a lookup, for example, or go to the special view that we've been speaking of, contact list view, and actually just tap your mouse on the column heading for interest rate.
Okay.
And just do a numbers game.
How specifically would I do that, Jacqueline?
Pardon?
How specifically would I do that
right out
to pick out the interest rate?
It would take a little bit of clicking.
I want everything over. I'll make this up as we go along. I want to solicit everybody that I have that's over 7.75 interest rate.
Okay. Okay, a couple ways to do that. If you want to stick with your contact list view, then you're going to go into the contact list view, and you're actually going to right-click and add a column. And that column is going to be interest rate.
Okay.
And just as we were sorting on company or contact or phone or zip, we can also sort on that field. And it's going to bring the blanks to the top, people who don't even have any data in that field at all. and the increasing numbers towards the bottom. So you can actually highlight and pick out which particular group you want to send to straight from that view.
So I told you before that there's, out of there, I know that there's 57 people. So you're saying when this thing gets sorted, those 57 are going to be in ranked order, and so all I have to do is go and tag those 57 now.
Highlight the first one that exceeds 770, which would be 775, and then two, not blanks, but anyone else who has any type of number that exceeds that, highlight that. Quote.
Do I have to highlight them individually?
You take the first one, and you will actually touch it with your mouse on the farthest left. You'll hold down the Shift key, and you'll tag the last on the farthest left. And you'll see how they all highlight in black. And that'll be, you'll hit immediately look up selected.
That saves 10 minutes there.
Pardon?
That saves 10 minutes there.
Yeah, it does. And those will be the ones that remain. Now, there are other ways to do this. You could actually do a lookup by example in the regular view and grab anything that exceeds greater than, because the fields do use Boolean logic. So if that's a little too advanced, I would stick with the contact list view area for now and know that that's available to you. Once you've actually, quote, lassoed those records that you want to ship out,
because now I want to get a letter out to them.
Correct. You would.
How do I do that?
You would have to, you can go straight into the contact view again, the one-at-a-time Rolodex, say write, mail merge, and you have a chance to actually create a template right at this point. You do require for mail merge that a template is created. Whether you're usually using the ActWord processor or the Microsoft Word processor, you do actually want to actually create that. You have to. It's mandatory that you create a template that reflects all that information.
And for those people that are a little confused about templates and having to set stuff up and whether it goes in ActWord, I mean, the whole point of this exercise here is that that's what you're there for.
Right.
Okay, and that's why you have things like PC Anywhere that we've talked about, so that our listeners out there aren't getting scared to death and clicking off by the dozen as they're listening to this. They're not scared at all because they know that they have some place to go to get this set up quickly and easily.
Definitely, and it's not uncommon for clients or to actually fax me, here's what I want, Jacqueline, blah, blah, blah. You know, it has all the details, the fields and information, data that they want, font type, style, whatever. They'll just fax it to me and say I want this created into a template, and I can email it straight back.
Cool.
Help them load it.
I like that a lot. That's cool. That's great.
Use it once and it's done. It's theirs forever. So once you create a template, you know it's always there. And many templates can be made from other ones subsequently with very low maintenance. Okay.
I've got one other scenario, and then we're going to start to run out of time. I have one other scenario. I have 729 people. Out of those, 600 of them are past clients, and I want to get a quarterly newsletter out to them. I use a service that creates the newsletter, and I need to get, all I got to do is email the list, the names and addresses of the people I want to, export it to them, and then they will send the newsletter out to me and bill me. How do I now? What usually I'm going to jump in. What usually happens in this scenario, and sometimes they're actually sending a Christmas list to a printer. You have your choice of actually downloading the specific fields. They're important, which are company contact, address 123, city, state, zip, country, maybe even, and then go ahead and just download that to text. ACT actually downloads to universal ASCII code. So that can actually be grabbed then on diskettes, emailed, given by diskettes to your printer or to your Can I send it as an attachment to an email?
Yes, you can. Yes, you may.
So I don't even have to deal, my point is you don't even have to deal with mailing something. You can just send it as an attachment to them. Yes,
and they will know what to do with it. They may ask you, they may specify tab delimited or comma delimited or comma separated values, but either ACT can cope with downloading either one. And so you can give them exactly what they want.
Okay, and this is something that if I want to set up, and now I want to talk about maybe the final one, where I want to send out a monthly newsletter to my realtor contacts. And fortunately, I've been able to capture their home addresses off some master lists from realtor boards, so I have their home address. I like that because I know they're going to read that more. And so now I have, out of my 729, I have 411 realtors that I want to get this monthly newsletter to and send it to their home. So
you would lasso that group.
Well, let's just say, I want to back it up and say that I write my own newsletter, and I write it in Word every month. I write my own newsletter, and now I want to get it to these 411 people. How do I do this going into Lookup Selected?
You would these people would probably be tagged, one as realtors, so you would resort through ID status for all realtors. And mostly incorporated, actually, some CPAs or some...
No, where it's specifically they're realtors, and I have their home address, 411 of them in there.
Terrific. Then you do a quick lookup, ID status, type in R, because the drop-downs are alphabetically...
Can I stop you here? Because ID status, for those of you that didn't listen to the first tape, that is a field where we can put people like mortgage industry, title attorneys, realtors, and in this case, we have a field called realtor. So
yes, it's a field where we identify who that person is to us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're entering in data, it is the one field that you may even want to force to be filled, just so that you constantly identify who that person is to you, so someone doesn't get lost to the wayside. But you would exactly do a lookup, ID status, and grab all those realtors.
Okay, so now I got 411 of them. I've just finished my writing it in Word, and so how does the last thing happen so that it can generate on my printer, and I can hand them to the secretary and say, please mail these, and can it do envelopes?
She'll probably go back into ACT and create all the envelopes, or labels. But regardless of that, just to create those letters for those 411, you would actually, once you lasso the group and you have that lookup, you would go straight into Write. Write is along the top on the menu. It's right at smack in the middle. And you'd say Write Mail Merge. And then you would select that current lookup. The current lookup will be of those 411. And on the right side, you're going to just kind of grab with your mouse that template which you've created to send out for this particular month or this quarter. And then you have selections of, should I email it? Should it be faxed? Or will I be printing?
Well, in this case, we're going to be sending to their home address.
You're going to be printing.
Yes.
The home address actually takes place during the construction of the template. Those fields are designated and marked during the creation of the template. So at this point, you won't be handling that. The template is already made, and it already knows to pull those fields. So that's all.
Oh, so what you're saying is that if I'm doing a monthly newsletter, I only have to set the deal up once.
Yep.
And because sometimes I may add a couple of realtors within the next month, I do have to do a lookup selected again because I want to add those 5 new realtors to my list, and maybe I purged one out of there. But you're saying that once the template and everything is set up, that's just a piece of cake.
And the power also is exciting from a standpoint of once you create a template for one quarter, you may have a similar design or flow to the style of sheet, even though specific areas of the content change. You may actually want to take that template as the cookie cutter to create subsequent templates. And that's where the real power comes in, where you're just not reinventing the wheel. You're not creating them all over from scratch.
I see.
And so that's going to be a real it's very handy.
Well, I think I want to end this on this point. What we've covered here is the ability to take, from the first class, the ability to take individual contacts where we've added, let's say, 60 different fields for every particular contact we have in our list. And then in this class, we've talked about the ability to take this data, manipulate it from such basic features as being able to sort Johnny Williams calls in, being able to go into the contact list, go to the W's, hit Williams, pull up Johnny Williams, and be able to talk to him and converse with him on the phone and talk about his little son Willie and how he's doing after all these years, to the ability to do some sophisticated mailings, some sophisticated mailings using attachments to emails or faxing. But whatever it is, the whole purpose of this is to try and explain to everybody out there that this is easy to do. It only sounds complicated, but using someone like yourself, Jacqueline, the ability to set this up without you even being in the room, through using something like PC Anywhere. So I want to thank you very much for taking your time. And those of you that would like to get hold of Jacqueline simply can look at the class list, and you will see a contact phone number and an email address for Jacqueline. So, Jacqueline, thank you so much. It was nice talking to you today.
Thanks so much. I enjoyed it.